Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Hope you're having a wonderful start to your day. We have a lot to talk about today in terms of the weather, so let me run you through the game plan. First, we're going to discuss what is currently ongoing across the country, including winter storm conditions as well as the severe weather ongoing across the southern plains. After we talk about that, we're going to talk about the coming days and how the system will begin to evolve and impact more areas with that weather, and then eventually move into later this week and see what kind of weather we're going to be working with across the eastern United States. And then we're going to touch on the longer range pattern and see if potentially this warmer pattern that we've been kind of locked into will begin to break down a little bit, and maybe we can get some winter weather back across the eastern United States. But if you like the video, go ahead and hit the like button. And if you're new here and you haven't subscribed, I'd love for you to do so you can always stay up to date with the latest changing weather that we are constantly dealing with really here across the eastern United States. But with that said, let's go ahead and get right into it. Looking at satellite here this evening, it's currently 5 o'clock here on the East Coast. Got this convection really blowing up here into the Arctic region as we had predicted really for the past couple of days. We are currently seeing this severe weather begin to evolve and continue. We also have winter storm conditions up here into the northern plains beginning, and all of this is ongoing because of this low pressure system that is really getting going here as it is exiting the Rocky Mountains and will continue to trek across the country in the coming days. So with that system, we have a lot of hazards to worry about currently. Winter storm warnings here in this pink, ice storm warnings in this purplish color, and then winter weather advisories in this lighter purple. We also have a tornado watch currently here through Texarkana, Little Rock, Shreveport, as well as even a tornado warning currently ongoing in Louisiana. We also have flash flood watches for a lot of these similar areas due to the heavy rainfall that they are going to get from this system in the coming days. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at radar here. We'll actually start off, we'll look here into the northern plains. Currently have some snow beginning to break out here, and potentially even a little bit of ice here in a bit of a battleground zone that we are dealing with in this region. That will begin to work its way off to the north and east overnight and into tomorrow, where Minneapolis will get in on some of that winter weather. But the main story right now is the ongoing severe weather here across the south. That includes multiple severe thunderstorm warnings and even a tornado warning currently here in Louisiana. So again, dealing with a lot going on here. Again, as you can see, some of these storms are beginning to rotate, which is why we have those tornado warnings being issued. And this is not the first one of the day. We've had multiple already. Another thing I do want to mention is, as you can see, we're starting to get storms to fire further back here to the west, and that will likely bring round 2 of severe weather into Arkansas and Louisiana going into the overnight. So with that said, let's take a look at the Storm Prediction Center outlook for today. And as you can see, we have that enhanced area here through the areas that we've been talking about recently, as well as the slight risk and the marginal risk kind of surrounding a bigger area. All right, so let's go ahead and look at future casts for this area as we go into the overnight hours of tonight. So again, currently dealing with these storms already across Arkansas and Louisiana, and we're also beginning to see these storms fire across eastern Oklahoma. So as we get into the overnight, the storms here in Arkansas and Louisiana will continue to push east with a slighter severe threat the later we go into tonight. But these storms out here in Oklahoma will then push back into Arkansas and reintroduce that tornado risk into the evening and overnight hours before eventually around midnight, really, this will begin to congeal into a line of storms, and we'll have more of a linear mode where wind gusts will become a higher threat than the tornadoes that we are currently dealing with in these areas. And then eventually, as we go into sunrise, these storms will begin to work their way across the Mississippi and into the state of Mississippi as it works across the Mississippi River stretching from Shreveport up to Memphis around sunrise. All right, sorry, let me go ahead and bring this back for you. We'll go ahead and look at the snow conditions as well that this is bringing. Currently getting some snow to break out here across southern South Dakota, northern Nebraska. And that will begin to intensify into the overnight hours. As you can see, some of this becoming very heavy snowfall into Nebraska and South Dakota before eventually even working their way into Minnesota into tomorrow morning. This will be a good thumping of snow too. We'll look at the snowfall totals here in a second, but by the time we get into, this is early afternoon, late morning tomorrow, Minneapolis starting to really get into that heavier precipitation. Maybe some ice mixing in there into Minneapolis, but I think you definitely at least see some snow, especially on the back end of this, where you'll likely see a good 24-hour period of at least snow showers hanging around as this low pressure kind of meanders around here. But again, this is Tuesday afternoon now. That snow moving through Minnesota with back-end snow here into Nebraska and South Dakota before eventually moving into Wisconsin, getting into Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. So snowfall totals here. I think this might be just slightly overdone. I would bring these totals down just a little bit, but I think 12 to 16 inches is a pretty safe bet here across this general area. Minneapolis is a tough forecast just because you're dealing with ice and snow, which just makes it very difficult to forecast snowfall totals in a situation like that. But, 3 to 5 inches, maybe 5 to 8 inches in Minneapolis is a pretty good bet with this system. All right, so after we get through that, we then will move into another day of severe weather going into tomorrow here across Dixie Alley. From Birmingham down to New Orleans and up back towards Talladega, being in that enhanced risk tomorrow for severe storms, with that slight risk stretching from Atlanta up towards Nashville and back down towards Jackson, Mississippi. And then as we go into Wednesday, that threat shifts even further to the east. As we've been talking about, this would likely be a multi-day event, and sure enough, the Storm Prediction Center agrees with this marginal risk as of right now here into the Carolinas on Wednesday. So we will definitely watch out for that. And with that being said, let's take a look at the futurecast for these areas. Already some ongoing showers we've had to deal with here across northern Georgia into upstate South Carolina. As we've had, so much warm air, it's just made it very easy for this kind of drizzly conditions to appear into these regions this afternoon, which was slightly unexpected, but nonetheless, it is happening. So as we go into the overnight, still pretty calm here across the southeast, but once we get towards sunrise, that line of storms marches in from the west into Memphis, Mississippi, and even Louisiana going into tomorrow morning. But as we get into tomorrow overnight, this is what we have to watch out for. Some of these discrete cells forming in areas of Dixie Alley, which can easily rotate if given the chance to strengthen up to that mature stage of thunderstorm development. As we get into tomorrow evening, that will continue, likely getting a pretty big block of storms, even moving into Atlanta, Greenville, South Carolina, and Mecklenburg County through the Charlotte region going into tomorrow evening. Less of a severe threat with these storms into tomorrow evening compared to the convection left over back into Mississippi and Alabama. But as we go into Tuesday night into Wednesday morning here, that line of storms begins to march into Atlanta, potentially even Charlotte, before eventually working its way off the eastern seaboard going into Wednesday afternoon and evening. So we'll watch for that threat to shift into coastal areas of the southeast here, into the coastal plain of Georgia, South Carolina, and the sandhills of North Carolina going into Wednesday afternoon, with some ingredients left over to work with in those regions. So sorry, my map needs to get reset here. This is actually my second time recording this because I forgot to hit the record button the first time. So sorry if I sound a little fatigued. But anyway, let's go ahead and now look at the later half of this week and what we can expect with these storms as they begin to move out, and what there will be to take its place. So again, legend at the bottom of the screen here to look at, and then of course everything else that's going on here is on the map. But as we talked about, this storm will begin to move off the eastern seaboard as we get into later this week, beginning to finally clear out going into Thursday afternoon through a big section of the east, with some leftover, maybe even snow showers here into New England on Thursday. And something actually I did want to add, sorry. I know I've talked a lot about the snow here in the plains and the severe storms in the southeast, but even for the next couple of days, there will be unsettled weather kind of in this middle ground from St. Louis all the way through Ohio, West Virginia, and up into the northeast. Still seeing some rain from this system. You just likely won't be dealing with the snow or the severe side, so that kind of just gets sometimes pushed under the rug, but it's still important to talk about. But anyway, moving back forward ahead into time, I do also want to note we could see a bit of maybe some icing conditions here into far northern New England going into Wednesday night into Thursday, as there's enough cold air here being pumped down from Canada that could become a problem. But as the system finally moves off the East Coast going into Thursday and Friday, much more pleasant conditions and much more average conditions here across the East. Not nearly as warm as it has been in recent days, but also a lot drier with maybe still some leftover, showers and snow showers and drizzle, but nothing crazy here into the Northeast. But as we go into this weekend, we will look for maybe another system to try to work its way back into the eastern United States. But we'll focus more on that in another video once we get more information on that and some more model runs to look at. So that is the GFS, or excuse me, that is the Euro model. Sorry about that. Let's take a look at the GFS now. Again, similar story here with the GFS. The system moves through everything I just talked about with the Euro, pretty similar here on the GFS as we get into Friday. And the GFS agrees with the Euro. We get some kind of storm system here to start the weekend. GFS has it a little bit further south right now, but I definitely think the system could cause some snow somewhere in the east going into this coming weekend, especially here on the GFS. I mean, look at this cold, high pressure trying to work its way out of Canada, which will help supply enough cold air to someone likely across the east to see at least a little bit of snow. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at the temperature forecasts here for the GFS and the Euro as well. This is temperature anomaly. So this just shows you how far above or below the temperatures are compared to what you would expect this time of year. So again, right now dealing with these super warm conditions here across the east. Let's go ahead and push this ahead in time. Again, warm conditions until the system works its way out going into Thursday and Friday. And once we get there, a lot more average weather here across the east with either a couple degrees, below or above average. So that is encouraging to see a bit of a change in the pattern here. Another thing I want to note here on the GFS, as you'll probably notice, once we get a little bit further into the long range, you begin to see kind of these shots of maybe cooler air trying to find their way here into the United States. And once we really get towards the middle of January, the GFS really tries to get some colder air down from Canada, which will help to kind of hopefully change up this pattern and bring more chances of snowier weather here across the east. And I do want to note that's how we get our snow a lot of the time here in the eastern United States during these La Nina winters. Is it kind of just takes a little bit of luck. Even though you're stuck in a overall average to warmer than average pattern, you still get these shots of cooler air. And luckily, with this active storm track we've had, we'll likely have precipitation pretty well above average here across the east. So that combined with these shots of cooler air will definitely help to increase the snow chances returning their way here into the east. So again, here on the Euro, this is going into this weekend. After that storm clears out, much more average temperatures here across the eastern United States. Then as we go into the long range, Euro kind of agrees with the GFS here. I mean, you get some of these more below average temperatures working their way down from Canada. And we're not going to have anything like we had during Christmas where it is this long, prolonged period of colder weather, but we'll still get these shots of colder air that will help to reinforce that chance of more winter weather across the east here into the long range. And that even tries to hang around in certain areas, keeping more average weather. So let's take a look now at the heights forecast here from the GFS ensembles. And what this helps us note is storm track as well as what we can expect in terms of temperatures. So this is what we've been dealing with, is this troughing in the west and this ridging in the east. The red here indicates ridging in the east, and then these blue colors indicate stormy weather or troughing out in the west that we've been dealing with. But as we begin to move this ahead in time, you see we get some of these storm systems to move their way into the east, helping to kind of push this ridging out of the way. And with that, this storm track becomes a bit more pronounced here across the east going into the long range. Again, this is getting into the middle of January, that time frame I've been talking about where the weather will likely become more active again here across the east. And you even signal here on the GFS a storm track potentially giving a favorable pathway here for snow in the east as we get into the middle of January. So I do think once we get towards that January 10th to, I guess, the end of January, we'll be in a lot more of a seasonal pattern. So not necessarily an above average pattern in terms of snowfall, but much more seasonable compared to what we've been dealing with this past week, which will definitely help to give at least the chance of snow returning to areas of the east. So let's take a look now at that temperature and precipitation probability outlook here for the 8 to 14 day period. So this runs from the 10th to the 16th of January. And I know you're looking at this thinking, well, what is he talking about? Colder temperatures. This map obviously shows, above normal temperatures, and that is correct. However, that doesn't mean it will be above normal the entire time here across the country. There will be above average periods, but you'll still get cooler shots to work their way in. And again, these are overall not super off the chart above normal probabilities here, especially into the southeast. I mean, you're looking at the lightest, color in the red spectrum that you can get. So while, again, slightly above average, much more seasonable than what we've been dealing with, and also above average precipitation here across the east in that same time period. So we'll see if we can try to link up one of these cold shots with some of this precipitation and hopefully get some of that snow to return here to the east. I know personally I love snow, and I don't come by it a lot here in South Carolina, so I am hoping for the best like many of you are as well. But before we get to that, we do need to worry about that severe weather through the rest of this week. So make sure that you are staying safe as we go from now into Wednesday across the South. And then if you're seeing that snow in the plains, try to get out there and enjoy some of it. But let me know where you're watching from again, and hit that like button if you liked the video, and go ahead and subscribe so you are up to date with the latest information. And I will see you all tomorrow.